In this video, we will create a function that returns the product of two numbers, and then we will also call that function within our main. So we're going to start by declaring and defining a function that returns the product of the two numbers that were passed to it. Okay, so we'll first start by giving our function a name. So I'm going to call this calculate product. It also receives two numbers. They're both floats. So number 1 and number 2. The return of this would be simply just the multiplication of number 1 with number 2. Since this value is a float, then we need to indicate that the return type would be a float as well. Okay, so now that we've declared and defined our function, let's go down and see what we can do in the main. We'll start by declaring the needed float variable. So we're going to need about 3 floats. Number 1 and number 2 and our product, which would really hold the result of this call. We then ask the user to enter the first number. We can also copy this line and put it into the place where we call or get the second number. We then want to get the entry from the user using this scanf function. And here we want to indicate that our entry is going to be a float. And that's going to go into, we need to provide the memory address of the variable number, which is actually number 1. Variable number 2. So to give the address of this, we just use the ampersand there. And we copy the same, we paste it for our second number. Now, by the way, this is sort of redundant code we can put into a function, but we'll do that later, maybe. Okay, so next we want to call the product function. It's actually called the calculate product function and store the returned value into product. So let's initially what happens is if we give this call and we pass number 1 and number 2, initially this is gonna have a returned float. If we don't capture this into a variable, this will be lost. That's why we want to store the result into our variable called product. And just note that this data type of the product needs to match with whatever is being returned, and whatever we send through also needs to match. So the number 1 and number 2 are both floats. So this is the function call. These are called arguments. We don't need to specify the data types because we've already declared them. We're just passing them passing their values. So number 1 and number 2, these are called arguments again. And then here, when we've defined our function, the two numbers here are called parameters, and we need to give their data types as part of the function declaration. Last thing we want to do is to print the product. Actually, let's product. Just thought we haven't compiled our code at all. And again, we are displaying a float, but we want this to be printed to 2 decimal places. So we indicate that. And then we mention what float it is. Okay, let's compile initially and see if we've got any issues. So our printf, we forgot a semicolon there. Probably another one here, because we I copy pasted. All right, let's run. Let's try 3.3 by 3.3, giving us 10.89, and that is the product. I hope this video helped you, and I'll see you in the next one.